Hi, I will show you how to create those dreadlocks. So basically this is just a bunch of curves, and then I instance this kind of circle mesh with bunch of flat cards and with this texture. But the devil is in the detail, so it is a bit complicated, more complicated than simple curve with custom mesh. I will do first quick breakdown, and then I will go into more detail about the whole setup. Okay, so first I started by manually adding some guide curves like those, and on top of those guide curves I added a bunch of hair systems. The first one, let's see how this looks without those hair systems. So now I am just instancing the mesh from the bottom on those manually placed guides. The one issue I had that, let's say I want to double the amount of dreads, I would then manually have to add twice the amount of guide curves. But I do not want to do this manually, and with the red system I can affect and change the density, also affect and change the hair look using procedural deformers. So let's see how this is built. From the start I am generating bunch of new strands, so you see I can control density in here like so. Then I added slide points, so this way we have slightly more density on the roots and less density on the endings. Then I added a bit of noise, randomize stream, profile distribute, where I picked this dreadlock profile main object, which is basically this object. So now this will be instanced on the strands. Then I push out the high strands slightly, embed roots. So this will move the hair roots slightly towards the inside of the character head, so without width. Then I trim the strands with custom mesh. So I will show you the mesh. And this is just subdivided sphere. It works like that. Then I am snapping slightly the strands to reduce the volume tiny bit. And factor set, finally I use this to customize the factor attribute, which is basically black and white gradient that is used in the hair shader for mixing the root and tip color. Okay, so now this looks kinda okay, except in here you see we do not get enough density around those dreads, so we get a bunch of bald spots. So I fixed that with the second green hair system. Without and with, you see it looks way better now. I will show you how it looks with the system color overlay. So those green strands are only placed and clamping toward the red strands. Okay, so let's do the quick breakdown. First, I have to tell the green strands to link and follow the red strands. I do this with tags. So in this column, I can assign tags to the hair strands. To the red one, I assigned VG tag, and then in the green strands, in the parent column, I told the green strands to follow VG tag. Without it, you see interpolation breaks on the green strands. Okay, so use this VG tag, and now in the strand generation, I can use interpolation or clamping, and the green strands will follow the red strands. Let's do the breakdown. So we start by generating a bunch of strands with higher density compared to the red strands. Then, because the idea is if we have the dreads, I want to instance this kind of mesh around to cover the character head. Okay, so we are spawning then the strands with this straight root profile, which is basically this mesh object. Okay, so we are spawning this with profile distribute, and I told this to use this flat card. then I am clamping those strands around the guides, and the clamping is not usually when you have guide, you will get clamps like this. But in this case, I actually have the setup where I clamp kinda like this to the guide. Okay. Then factor set is used to customize the gradient for root and color mixing. So if I adjust this, you see it doesn't look good. But I adjust the tip value, make it darker so it blends nicely with the darker roots of the guides. I simplified then strands because they are quite short, so I don't need too high resolution. Align to parent. You see it actually looks worse with align to parent, but the idea is that if you have the guide, then bunch of child strands is spawned around. I do not want them to face random direction. I want them to face the guide like that. But in this case, actually, it doesn't look too good, so I do not use it. Then I randomize length of those green strands and radius set to adjust the radius. So that is almost everything about the setup. There is one more hair system, the yellow one, and this hair system is the filter type. Basically, it means that in here I can affect any other previously generated strands. So in my case, I told strand filter to affect strands with VG tag, meaning we will affect the red strands in this hair system. So let's enable the last system. So without, with, and let's do the breakdown. So first I am adding a bit of tilt to those strands. So this tilt is kind of going like this. So it is making the hair strands twist. Then I taper it and adjust the radius slightly. Lastly, I use instance on strand. So I instance this mesh, which is basically cylinder object from here. And that is the whole setup. Now there is also one interesting thing worth mentioning. So in the whole modifier stack, there is this sample normal modifier. Without it, you will get ugly shading. And this is because we are using this kind of cylinder with bunch of flat cards. What is happening? Okay, so the normals maybe on those, maybe like this one will face this way, and this one maybe will face this way. And you see when the sun is shining, those normals give like bad results because they are facing all over the place. But I would probably want them to face radially like this. So I created a helper mesh that I will show you now. And this helper mesh has kinda simple geometry. And I can use this simple geometry to sample normals and transfer those nice smooth normals to the dreads. So you see this will now fix the shading. So without custom sampling of the custom normal, with custom normal samplet, we get more cylindrical and nice shading. So this is the breakdown of the whole hair system setup. So I want to show you how to recreate something like that from scratch. Let's assume this is the character head, and from the hair library, subcomponents, I will append the scalp. And then place this close to your character head, like that. And on the scalp modifiers, you will see shrink wrap. I will set target to character head, and then apply it. Now I want to create some guides. One way would be to use hair drawing, So hold D, left click and drag, and then you could groom this using the sculpt mode. But I will delete those strands and instead use the profile strands from UV pattern. And I will explain how it works on the plane on right. So you have this plane. Let's add strands from UV pattern. And it looks very uniform, which is like huge advantage compared to random strand generation. So in here, this random strand generator would create random points, and the issue is that you have some bold spots, then clump of strands. You could fix that by using Poisson disk sampling, using relaxation, but using this new method, you don't have to deal with those options because this is very uniform from the start. And you may be saying that this is looking very uniform and too artificial because we have those like stripes. But in the real case scenario, you wouldn't actually you wouldn't even recognize those strands were made on the grid pattern. So usually this is not issue. Now this method is using mesh UVs for strand generation. I will show you how it works. So if I go to edit mode in the plane, unfortunately sometimes Blender cannot show UVs if your mesh has some modifiers. So I will have to transfer those modifiers. Ctrl-Shift-H, transfer hair system to empty curve. And now this is separate object. And I can go to plane, edit mode, and we see UVs. And you see when I move the UVs, it is changing the strand distribution. The way it works, I am spawning a bunch of points on the UV space, and then when we move the UVs or scale it down, those UV is covering less points, so we spawn less strands. We can use this as advantage, for example, to control density. So, for example, let's say I want more density of the strands on the top corner. I can use the soft selection, scale the UVs like that, and you see we get more points now growing on this area. And this is another advantage compared to the old method, because using the old method you would create a vertex group, and this vertex group would randomly remove a bunch of strands, and this would also cause some bold spots. So you would then again have to fight with those bold spots. But in here, it's kind of the transition is very uniform. Anyway, let's go to the character head, and we cannot see the sculpt mesh. It is because automatically those hair strands are linked to this one. So for example, if I change the profile width, you see both are changing. And when I transferred her system, it was smart enough to know that we do not want to draft the source mesh on those strands, because it will be then drafting the same plane twice. But because I disabled the drafting of source mesh, it is now also was hidden on the left. So anyway, let's undo that. And on those strands, I want to maybe show the sculpt mesh. And I want to edit the sculpt mesh UVs. So I will use transfer again, just like previously. And this way I will be able to see the UVs. And with this method of strand generation, you will want to use the minimum stretch UV method. This will give you the best result. And just like previously, I can use soft selection and scale UVs. And this way, you will get more points distributed on the character top. Just remember that this won't work with overlapping UVs, and keep those inside the 101 UV space. Okay, so anyway, let's groom this in the procedural way first. I will increase length, maybe reduce density, so the less strands there is to groom, the better. And okay, so I want to add some physics on top. Let's play in the timeline and simulate. So this looks kinda okay. Maybe let's make the strands a bit longer. And I am resetting timeline because if you simulate the high strands and then adjust the settings, sometimes the result might be not the best because of the simulation cache. So I reset simulation cache by going to the first frame. And this is too long. Okay, so let's say this is good enough. Maybe I will increase the influence range like that. And to save time on modeling, I will add a mirror and use bisect, so it will remove left side and mirror the right side. And I do not like how those strands are looking, so I will set bisect distance to 1 centimeter, and now those two strands were merged into one. If you want, you can use clear mode. This will remove those strands actually. Now I like this more or less, it's good enough, so I want to groom that, but you cannot groom the strands because they are procedurally generated. If I disable modifiers, you see there is no strand geometry. So I will apply those modifiers, and just so you know, this current hair system is attached to the scalp curve. So that's why we can use bake option. If you cannot use bake option, then use transfer hair system to curve, and then bake will be available. So in short, we should now be able to go to edit mode and move the points. So you can use Blender sculpt mode. I will enable symmetry, collisions. I prefer to use the projected method and try to groom. If you cannot move the strands, press A to select the strands, because only selected strands can be groomed. And instead of using Blender Groom, I want to show you some Blender hair tool modeling tools. So they are located in here. Enable that icon, and then you will be able to select hair tips and move them with G key. I can enable symmetry, so it will look like that. And maybe I will switch from chain IK mode to root mode. In this mode, I can move like strands, like kind of one object around the origin. And this is how I would kind of groom the hair strands. I can use other hotkeys listed in here, so I can extend the strands, straighten them, etc. You have option to box select, lasso select, stuff like that. One thing I want to fix is I do not want the strands to be growing like that. I want the bottom strand to be going more like down, so we will get more uniform like volume. So usually I would fix that by selecting the strands that are kind of close to bottom, rotating them down, straightening, extend to shorten. Similar thing into, maybe rotate this down, straighten slightly, shorten. And actually I could maybe take all the strands, extend them, maybe straighten this one slightly, and then from the side view I will select all the endings and use knife tool to shorten them. And you can tweak the settings to your liking. Another interesting way with this root mode, you can enable soft selection, and this will now affect mostly the hair endings. So when I rotate them, only the end will rotate. When I grab them, only the end will be like affected. Okay, so it won't be perfect, but you get the general idea about the workflow now. I want to add a bit more dreads. So instead of manually adding more, I will just add one more time strands from UV pattern. And it doesn't look the best, but it should be good enough. Now, Let's try to recreate this hairstyle when we get a split-like feature. The easiest way would be to go to scalp, and on the scalp we have this sharp edge with a split edge modifier. This kinda divides the mesh into two mesh islands, and it is useful because we can make hair strands to mask by those islands so that the left strands will go to left, right will go to right. Except in my case, I do not want to split to make it on the center, so I will clear sharp, and let's create a split in here. Mark sharp, and now we have those kind of split mesh in this area. Now, visually nothing changed, but I can maybe enable strand overlay, so it will be easier to see the guide strands. And the idea now is that when I move the guides on the right, only child strands on the right should follow it. Now there is Blender bug that I reported, but it was not fixed, where you see I am moving the guides, but the child strands do not follow. The fix is to go to edit mode, select all the strands, and set curve type poly. And now child strands are following those guides. Anyway, I will now disable symmetry, and the idea is that I want to move the hair strands from the right to right. So if I select strands from the right island using this button, then click on the mesh island, you see the strands should go all to the right. To make it easier to see, I will actually assign new group to those strands and then rotate them without soft selection. So maybe like that. This may be here. So I am searching for the reddish strands and something like that. And this also, move it to right, move this to right. Actually, maybe sometimes I am jumping with soft selection and without soft selection. And you get the idea. This won't be like looking perfect, but I just want this to be good enough. And now it should be mostly placed correctly. So the strands from the right are mostly on the right. Strands from guides from the left are going mostly to the left. And thanks to this mesh island split, this should look quite okay. Now, in some cases, like some strands do not go nicely. Maybe it may be that you just do not have enough guides, like maybe in this spot we do not have enough guides. So I could like select a strand and without soft selection, Shift D to duplicate the strand. So sometimes you may just need to add more guides. And yeah, it looks better. And sometimes, and with soft selection, sometimes you may play with the interpolation options in the strand generation. So in the strand generation, there you can try to change, for example, number of the guides, or use align to surface normal. Sometimes it may look with align, sometimes without. We'll quickly explain that. So let's say you have this kind of mesh. Let's add some guides. And now I will add child strands. And without align to surface normal, we get this kind of result. With align to surface normal, we get this kind of effect. So this is how it works, and sometimes it can help with your hair look. And if some strands are still like going in not nice way, then it may be matter of just adding more guides. So I will like maybe take this one, rotate it, move this in here, duplicate, rotate like so, and you get the idea. Okay, so this now looks decent enough. You will probably want to spend like 15 minutes modeling that, but I don't want to spend too much time on moving verts around. So this is the basic setup, and now it is mostly a matter of changing profile type, assigning this dread-like preset to the hair strands, and I will explain that in the next part of the video. Before I will add the dreads profile, I will want to resample those strands to get more resolution. So I will use Ctrl-Shift-H, resample, and it is a bit smoother now. We will set uniform spacing to the max value, and maybe let's bump up count to 10 points. So longest strands will get 10 points on them. And lastly, I will offset the points slightly toward the root, so we will get more points in the beginning of the strands. It may be easier to see if I show the debug overlay. So we have more points in here, and then the spacing is increasing. Okay, so now let's go about how we could generate this kind of profile and this kind of texture. Well, you will have to switch your profile type from the flat to multi-curve. Multi-curve because we want to use at least like 2 objects. And currently we do not see any profile because you have to load some profile curves. And the automatic way to generate them is to use this generate profile object from UV. When I press that, on the bottom you see we have those helper cards that you can pick any of them and instance on your hair strands. So for example, if I pick, let's say, this object, and we cannot see it. So let's see what is going on. We do not need UV distribute right now because we are instancing objects and not UVs. So UV is not needed. Instead, in the profile parameters, I will use profile distribute. And currently we are distributing all profiles randomly on the strands, but since I just picked one object, so only this one will be drawn. So anyway, this works, except the texture is not what we need, and UV layout probably will have to be also changed because we want like this texture. So let's remove those objects, and later we will regenerate this again. But first, let's deal with new texture. To bake new textures, you can go to the hair baking and press import baking scene. And you will see new scene imported in the second. So this is the old one, this is the new one. And we can see the default texture with straight strands. In here, I will disable the default hair collection and enable dreadlock collection. And you'll see we may need to update UV layout because this is different from this one. Okay, so I want to bake this. I will bake this to some folder. Let's call this AAA. And I will want to bake opacity and then shift click on the depth. This should be enough. And lastly, I want to enable channel mixing. Then press bake. The channel mixing will allow me to put depth into RGB and opacity into alpha. So the bake is done. We can now use this channel mixing feature. I will go to the texture editor, the texture channel mixing, and in here you see we have this setup automatically created because we use this mix bake channel. And I will want to mix the depth with opacity. So use Shift A, set alpha, and for the depth, for image I will put depth, for alpha I will use alpha from opacity, and then Shift A, output texture, and I will connect the output, this to output. Let's set output path to temp, output image to BBB, and press save. Now you should see this image, and it is using depth in the RGB. Okay, so now there is this setup on the right. This setup is used for previewing of the bake. We switch to the material view, and we have those haze strands textured with this AAA texture. Except it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good because we are still using old UV layout. If I go to those object profile settings, we are using this UV data object. This is where the UVs are stored. You can edit this object UV layout by going to the UV image editor and then click Pair UV. So we will edit this way the UV data. Now this add-on is trying to be too smart and it automatically loaded some background texture. It's hard to see what is going on, so I will cancel. And why this texture changed in the background? It is because add-on is searching for this preview material, which is assigned to the hair cards. Then it is searching for the principal shader, and in here it goes to like base color, and it is searching for texture used in the base color. We did not bake any of those textures, but we baked the depth. So that's why then it picks depth as the background. But the depth is not very readable, so I will disconnect that. And the next texture connected will be to alpha. So this alpha channel now will be used as background. When I press here UV, you see now it is more readable what is going on. So we can edit UVs, just move your mouse over UV box, press delete to remove them. You can grab them like that. You can left click and drag to create new ones. You can drag the corners to resize the UV boxes like that. It won't be like perfect, but okay, this will be good enough for us. And enter to accept. So those edited UVs data are now stored in this UV data object. I will rename this object to UV data new. And this will allow me to just use the same UV data on the character head on the previous scene. So now we have new texture, new UV data. Let's jump to old scene. And I want to show you the wrong way to jump to old scene using this built-in blender method. You see now this is the default scene with the head. It doesn't look good. The shading changed and this is not good. So instead I will go back to the baking scene, and to jump to old scene, use this hair baking in the bottom, switch to main scene. You see now we have proper shading and proper viewport layout. Okay, now we want to use the new UV layout on the haze strands. So in the UV data, I will search for the new UV data. And also now I can show you when we generate profile objects, we are using indeed new UV layout with few boxes. Now the issue is that we are CD using old texture. So again, we remove those. And where was those textures defined? They are in the hair tool default material. So let's jump to the shader editor and search for default material. And the default hair tool material, it is using just single texture with the hair strip depth. I can show you. This is the default texture. It has depth in the RGB and alpha in the opacity in the alpha. So we just baked this BBB texture with similar setup. So I will replace this with BBB. And actually right now, this is all we need. We have new texture assigned to haze strands with new UVs. When I generate profile object one more time, You see, now we have finally new UV layout with new texture. So let's replace this old profile with new one. We'll remove this object and let's pick maybe this one. And it should be visible now that we are using this noisy texture on the hair strands. Now let's make this into the dreads, like similar to this one, with circle and bunch of crosses. To do this, I will convert this into circle. So go to edit mode. And one thing about the setup. I told you that we are instancing this card on the hair strands, but this is not quite true. The top part is just preview, so that you can see how the generated card will look like. But the only real geometry is this curve on the very bottom. This will be actually assigned to hair strands and create profile. So I am editing just the bottom. And let's make this into circle. Something like that. And then let's make this into close curve. And now it should be round. So you see it is round actually in here. Lastly, I want to add bit crosses like that. So I will duplicate this curve object and join this with the circle. Go to edit mode. Maybe make the circle smaller. And then I duplicate this cross, like maybe like this, maybe like that, maybe make this smaller. So now we get kinda the look we wanted. And I will increase the width of those braids. And this is how this works. Now we will want also probably this short hair card for distributing those short hair cards around the roots, just like I showed you previously. And I was a bit lazy with this setup. So meaning I did not create unique like texture with short strands. In my lazy way, I just used and created small UV box on the character in here. So in theory, I could do the same thing in here. I will edit the UVs and create a short, small UV box like around here. And this will be placed as simple accept. And then let's generate profile objects again, or actually, let me show you something. I will duplicate this card. And when I have this curve selected, you see the top is just preview. This is only the bottom part is real curve. You can use Ctrl-Shift-H, set UV region, and I can pick number 4. So you see number 4 is picked, and we have this stretch texture because the length is a bit long. But anyway, we can now use this new extra, like we name this short, and this call this bright, not bright, dread. And finally, I have the dread. I can add the short, and we have now both objects and both profile objects available. Now the issue is that they are distributed randomly. Sometimes the dread, sometimes the short. So in the profile deformers, we are using all. I will switch this to use single UV region, and my bad, we are not using UV regions, we are using profiles, and I will pick manually the dread. Okay, and now you see only one is instanced on the strands. So this is how you set the profile setup with circle and like a bunch of crosses. If you want better quality, you could maybe create more dreads by combining those in various in various ways, and then instancing on the hair strands. Okay, so I showed you how to create guides, how to assign custom texture, custom profile to your hair cards, to your curves. Now I will go back to original object and let me show the more detailed breakdown of this hairstyle, starting from the guides. The guides, if I go to sculpt mode and enable strands overlays, you see they are colored. You can pick one color using selection groups and pick by group, then left click in the viewport, and you can groom those selected strands. Or maybe you want to create a new group, so select a bunch of strands and click assign new ID. Lastly, there is a different way by using mesh islands. So click this button, then click on the mesh island on your scalp, and then you can groom only this part. Okay, so let's go now to the hair object. Later I will actually explain why I split hair systems into this helper mesh object, because on the left, for example, you see that the hair systems are assigned to the guide curve. But to show you how to split hair system from your guide curve, use Ctrl-Shift-H, transfer hair system to empty mesh, and now this is a separate object. And let me select those curves. You see they are separated. So later I will explain why, but for now let's keep going, and I will go into more detail about the red hair system setup. In the strand generator, I am using interpolation, so we are following the guides, and I am using align to surface normal, but in here it doesn't change too much. If you remember, I explained already that if you have some guides on your mesh without align normal, child strands will follow them like so. But if you enable align to surface normal, then those child strands will bend to the surface normal direction. I use mesh island splits. Without it, if you have strand generated like in here, then it can follow one guide to the right, one guide to the left, and it will then end up like in the center, which is maybe not what you want. So then use mesh island splits for masking those hair strands. Then I added slide points. I am sliding points more towards the root, because usually if you have character, then hair strand, usually most bending is happening close to the root. The another reason is that I am unbending hair roots after sliding those points, and without sliding those points, we have like long segments. So this whole long segment would be embedded into the character head. But because we have now more resolution, only this shorter segment will be moved into the character head. And the sliding is done using influence range parameter. If I show you how it looks like, the darker the color is, the more points will slide toward the dark spot. So if I play with the influence range, you see the more I increase the dark values, the more points we have on the ending. Okay, so we have the slide points, embed roots, then noise deformer. The noise deformer, it will be easier to see on the right. So let me add that. And first, if the noise is too big, reduce global size. Now the noise is made from two sections: uniform noise and then per strand noise. First, let me explain the uniform noise. So if I increase uniform noise amplitude, we get something like that. I will go to the strand generation and increase subdivision steps, so we get more points. So this uniform noise is kind of adding flow to the haze trance. In that case, I think this is a bit too much waviness happening. I would prefer maybe one bump like that. So I will reduce the frequency, uniform frequency parameter from 1 to around 0.6. Now we have like one bump mostly. And then I would usually adjust the seed until maybe I find value of the noise that I like. Sometimes I can scroll through the seed for like 2 minutes until I find something I like. Okay, so we get this noise, but still those strands get nice flow, but are a bit parallel. I can break this with per strand noise amplitude. So let me increase this from 0 up to 1. And now this is no longer so uniform. Just do not overdo it, or your hair will look like a mess. Okay, so let's maybe go about the influence range slider. If I show you how it looks, basically it will mask out the noise from the roots because they are black. If I increase the influence range, the hair strands are getting blacker and darker, meaning the noise is mostly now only applied on the hair endings. So this is how it works. Okay, now let's go back to the hairstyle on the left, and I will show you the trim. It will be easier to see if I enable the last hair system with the golden things. So without trim, with trim. The idea was that we have like few layers of the hair strands, and the outer layers I wanted to make them kind of like shorter and shorter, like this way. And to do this, you would have to use kind of like vertex group mask maybe in here, because this is the place from which the longest strands and the most outside strands grow from. But I used a different method. I will show you this right now. Rather than using vertex group, I use this edge distance mask. So without it, with, you see we get the effect, at least what I wanted, a bit over the top, but now the most outer strands are the shortest. Then they get longer and longer. The way it works, I am using the crease edge from the scalp. If I show you, this is the white edge is the one with crease. I forgot to crease this one. And we can use this white edge for masking the strands. So if we have strand in here, it will get like this distance to the edge. Maybe here strand will get another distance, and here we will get another distance. So the closer the strand will be to edge, the stronger the mask will be. And if I show you this on the hair strands, you see that the closest strands are the darkest, meaning the trim value is stronger on the darkest strand. Then I added a bit of randomization on top, without randomization, with randomization. And lastly, I wanted to reduce the strength of this effect, so I use offset gain. Without offset gain, with offset gain. The way the offset gain works in here, well, we get something like that, like maybe this strand without offset gain was cut by like 60%, so the original length is like 0.3, meaning it got masked by value of 0.3. Now I want to make this longer, so in the offset gain I am adding value of 0.3. So this means original 0.3 plus 0.3 from offset gain. this will result in value of like 0.6, meaning the strand will be shorter, back to the 60% of the original length. So now this actually made the hair strands longer. Okay, a bit convoluted, the explanation, but yes, this is how it works. Lastly, the trim was a bit much in the front, so I masked this input, which is responsible for masking out the effect. If I set mask to 0, we get no trimming. With mask set to 1, we get full trim based on the tip trim value. So anyway, I used mask like this one to prevent trimming on the front. I can show you the vertex group that was used to create this mask. And then I do not want to completely remove trim from the front. So I just added offset gain on top. And this added value of 0.5 to the black spots. So the dark strands, they got plus 0.5 value, meaning we get like 50% of the trimming happening in the front of the character with this setup. So you see those strands are now trimmed less in the front. Okay, the profile distribute, it is used in here to pick basically this mesh, then push out. Push out is setup is quite similar to the trim, meaning if we have those strands, I want to push out the middle layer a bit more, and then outer layer I want to push this out even more. So I use the similar setup with edge distance mask. So without edge distance mask, everything is pushed out in the same way. With edge distance mask, you see the outer layers are pushed out mostly. And I use this time sharp edge, but I could use the crease edge just like previously. And I can change, for example, the range of this effect, like so. Let's visualize this mask. Now you see this effect is inverted because I want to push out the white strands the most. And to invert the effect, just click in here. Okay. So after that, I am randomizing this tiny bit without randomization, with randomization, and lastly offset gain, where I add like plus 20% to every strand, so that even the dark strands will now get pushed out by 20%. And influence range in this case is preventing the effect from on the roots. Trim by mesh. Trim by mesh is used in here to cut the hair strands like so. But this is not only to make the hair look cool, it is also fixing one issue with Blender interpolation. So what I mean by that, if I disable the randomized trimming and noise, even if I have perfectly equal guides, those hair strands would not be placed in the same spot. You have still some like noise and random offset on the endings. The only real way to get rid of those not uniform look is to use cutter mesh like that. And okay, so let's go and enable noise trimming. Then I am snapping slightly the hair strands, and this is applied mostly to the hair roots, hair tips, because I use this kind of influence range mask. And set factor, finally, it is used to fix the white color on the shorter strands. So I use length mask on the value input to reduce brightness of the shortest strands. So that is the whole setup for the red hair system. The green one, if you remember, was here to fill the bald spots. There was not much that I can add to explain the green strands. We just are spawning short strands, and I will explain why they are short and not long in a second. Then I am picking one of the profile meshes with this one, this mesh, this instanced on mesh using this profile distribute. And then we come to the clamps. And the reason why I used short strands is because, let's say we have long guide and long child strands. In my case, I am clamping to around 10% from the root. So this is the target where the hair tip will go to. Because the hair child strands are long, they will do something like that, which is not what we want. So if I made the child strand shorter, then they will follow the guide more like this way. So this will look way better with this clamping toward the root. Then I am adjusting factor slider so that we blend the hair endings nicely into the roots of the braids, of the dreads. I am then reducing the poly count with simplify. Align tilt doesn't do much in here. Trim is used to randomize the length of those green cards, and reduce set to reduce radius. Okay, now the last hair system is the yellow strand filter. It is used to affect the red strands. Later I will explain why I set this up this way. So I am adding tilt, and if I show you, I am adding 400 degrees using this kind of mask. I could actually invert this like so. This way we get 0 tilt on the root and full 400 degrees on the endings. And on top of that, I am masking tilt amplitude with length mask, so that the shorter strands won't twist that much. Radius set is used for slight randomization of the radius and slight taper to the ending. And lastly, instancing of the mesh. Okay, so we get the hair strands generated. There was one issue though. Without sampling custom normals, the shading on those dreads look like this. And I fixed that in the way I will show you now. So we have this kind of hair system, and it is guided by the curves. Now the issue is the shading is ugly because we are using this kind of profile with those normals facing all over the place. We would like to get normals like those. For that smooth normals, it would be best to get kind of like this round mesh around the hair strands, and then we could sample nice normals like those. To do this, the easiest way was for me to just duplicate the helper mesh object with hair system. Normally I would not move it to the side, but I want to show this clearly. And now when I duplicated this mesh, this is still linked. So when I adjust some parameters, both objects are changing. The same is true for the profile. Now, the idea is on this duplicate, I want to actually switch profile from this kind of dread-like to nicer half semicircle. Let me do this, but first, as I explained, if I change profile right now, it will change on both objects. So I will undo, make this profile unique, and then I will switch to the flat profile, reduce width, and I will show you this is how it looks. The flat profile has this roundness parameter, and now you can hopefully see that we can use this mesh, which is exact copy of the dreads, but has now smooth, nice looking normals. We can sample those normals on the dreads. So the same setup was done on the left. We have the dreads. Then without sampling custom normals, it looks like crap. I duplicated this mesh to this object. Let me show you this in the solid view. So this is like the semicircle flat profile applied to the duplicate. And on the duplicate, you see only the red hair system was kept. It is because I do not want to sample normals from the green strands, the short ones, and I also did not want to sample normals from those ending things. Lastly, now I can finally explain why this strand filter has the add tilt in it and why I did not add tilt in the red system directly. So let me do this. I will copy this deformer and paste this into the red one. Paste as new. Now it is twisting the red strands, but the issue, I will show you now the issue. You see this helper mesh for normal sampling, now it is all twisting around, and this won't give us nice normals. So that's why I could not add twist with tilt to the red hair system. And that's why I added this into this filter. And that is basically the whole setup. And maybe a last issue, how do you sample those normals in easy way? I will select my dreads, Ctrl-Shift-H, sample normals. Pick your helper mesh, set mix factor to 1, sample distance, and this should work okay. Then it will create this modifier, and your shading should look okay. So I think that covers everything I wanted to show about this whole hair setup. Okay, so that is almost everything, except let's say you want to adjust length of your strands and make them longer. This will stretch your texture from this kinda to this, and you may want to prevent that. There is a new way to do this, and I will show that on simpler setup like in this one. So let's say I will want to use the tiling in the profile. If you do not see this option, run update current profile. You see a new option of to use UV tiling. If you still do not see that, update add-on. So anyway, I enabled that and there is not much difference. Let's go to the deformers, profile parameters, UV tiling set, and let's set tiling to 2. Now you see the effect we have. It is now correctly increasing tiling for the texture. You can use this mix to no tiling input, mask this for example with length mask, and now the shorter strands will get 1 tile. If you disable round to integer, you will get this kind of effect. And this will prevent stretching on your hair cards. But one issue is that if, for example, I apply the same technique in here, so use tiling on the profile, then in the profile parameters, add UV tiling set tiling to 2, well, you see the issue. If your texture is not tiling, this won't look good. There is a way to do this in Hair Tool, but this video is long already, so maybe next time. Hope you like this tutorial and see ya.